Welcome to Cheese in Depth. I'm Michael Landis, and today we have Sierra Nevada and Cypress Grove Chevre. And we're going to pair up 4 beers and 4 cheeses to your delight.
Hi, everybody. It's Michele Haram. I'm from Cypress Grove Cheese. I'm happy to be here. Thank you very much, Michael, for inviting me, and to Sierra Nevada for our long partnership with Sierra Nevada Cheeses and Cypress Grove. I'm sorry, Sierra Nevada beer and Cypress Grove cheese. They just go together.
Yeah, right.
They just do.
Absolutely.
I've been at Cypress Grove for just a couple of years, but it's a long storied company, and I'm really glad to be part of the tradition at Cypress Grove.
All right.
Awesome.
So, Terrence, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, my name is Terrence Sullivan. I started at Sierra Nevada Brewing Company 27 years ago this month as a graveyard brewer. I went to UC Davis to study fermentation science, worked a little bit in the wine industry for a couple years when I was interning at school, and got into beer as that was kind of my passion and my love. Was for beer, and so naturally I decided to pursue that, and luckily I got hired by literally the one brewery I wanted to work at. So it's been a dream come true. Right now I do marketing stuff for the brewery, kind of a brand manager for a lot of our limited release beers, and possibly beers that will meet the outside world outside of Chico and Mills River, North Carolina. So a little bit about Sierra Nevada, I guess I should say too, is it was founded over 40 years ago by Ken Grossman, who was a home brewer that fabricated his own brewery out of used dairy equipment, and had a passion for hops and full flavored ales, and started making pale ale, IPAs, and porters and stouts, and here we are now, the I think 3rd largest brewery in the United States, craft brewery. So been a fun ride. So
Great. Charlie.
I'm Charlie Bamforth. I've been part of the brewing industry since 1978. Just around the same time that Ken Grossman kicked off his business interests. And I was with a brewing research organization in the UK, with 2 tours of duty with them, interspersed with about 8 years with the Bass Brewing Company, based in Burton-on-Trent and also near to Runcorn. And I was also the visiting professor at Heriot-Watt University. So back in 1999, they wanted to recruit a new professor, a brewing professor at UC Davis. And they wanted somebody with industrial experience, academic experience, and research experience. So I was the guy on the planet who checked those 3 boxes. And so I came to UC Davis as the professor back in 1999. And after 20 years, I retired. And the first thing that Ken Grossman said to me was, "Charlie, you can't retire. Come and spend some time with us." So I rejoice in the title of the Senior Quality Advisor for Sierra Nevada. And what Terence knows and didn't say is that they have the 2 most beautiful breweries, not only in America, but also the 2 most beautiful breweries on the planet, in Chico and in Mills River. And Ken is one very, very impressive guy. So I'm so proud to be part of that. I still have my academic hats in place. I still do a lot of short course work with UC Davis, and I'm an honorary professor at Nottingham in the UK. So. And I write a bit about soccer as well, but that's another story.
yeah, I'll add that our brewery in Mills River is right next to the Asheville, North Carolina airport. So if there's anybody out there listening that is going to visit Asheville, make sure you stop by the brewery. It is gorgeous.
It's a destination.
Yep.
Let's go ahead and get going here. We have 4 beers and 4 cheeses, and we've kind of worked together of being able to pair these up. And, you know, the beauty of the types of pairing that we have today is that they happen to be very conducive to each other. you know, a lot of times you run into cheeses that can be very bold or very out in this direction or that direction, and the beers can be sometimes a little difficult, but these are really well made for each other. You know, Sierra Nevada Pale Ale has been my gold standard for goat cheese pairings for almost 20 years. I've been doing that for a long time. It's in my book very predominantly because it's just something that works so well together. And what we're hoping today and what we'd like to do is kind of talk about some of those reasons, not only that it's just really good together, but why is it kind of working so well? And so we're going to be running through the four. What we have is we're going to start off with the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, and then the Torpedo, then the Wild Little Thing, and then the Barrel Narwhal. And we're pairing that up with the Cypress Grove, first off with the Purple Haze, which is a fabulous cheese to work with. Their new cheese, which is the Little Giant. And we're going to twice pair that because the Torpedo worked so well with it, but it also worked really well with the lamb chopper. So we're going to pair those two together. And then the Wild Little Thing worked with the Humboldt Fog beautifully and the lamb chopper. So we'll probably do that too. And then at the final one, it's a Cypress Grove, a Midnight Moon, that wonderful Gouda, and really looking forward to putting those all together. So the first question I get asked is, do you eat the cheese or do you drink the beer, or do you drink the beer and then eat the cheese? Well, we all know it goes to the same spot, but the sensory difference can be a little different in that. In other words, if you're a cheese fan, then start with the beer. And I know that sounds strange, but if you're a cheese fan and you know the cheeses, you already have a base of reference. If you don't know the beers as well, start with the beers and then the cheeses will work in there. And the reason for that is because everything changes. As much as we'd like to say, well, we're going to taste the cheese, we're going to taste the beer, we are, but when you taste them together, things happen. Malts come up, hops disappear, butter comes out, all kinds of great things that can happen in this process. And so today, having Michele here, who knows everything about Cypress Grove and all the flavors, and then having Terence and Charlie that knows about the beer, we can really drill down and talk about how wonderful that these are together. So let me do this. Let me start off with Michele and have her introduce our first cheese, and then I'll go to Terence and Charlie to talk about the beer. How about that?
First cheese is Purple Haze. And this is, so Cypress Grove makes goat cheese, right? So this is one of our fresh goat cheeses. That's the guy. And it is fresh goat cheese, which is the simplest of things. Our goat cheese, we've been making cheese not as long as you guys have been making beer, but since 1983 in Arcata, California, way up north in Humboldt County. And this cheese is our fresh goat cheese that also has fennel and fennel pollen and lavender. Fennel pollen is a big deal, and lavender. Those are both things that Mary grows in her garden, our founder, Mary Keene. So we, she put them together. She's kind of an alchemist when it comes to cheese. And so she put those flavors together, and that is our #1 selling flavored cheese. It's just very different than most flavored goat cheese. It's not, like a cranberry log or something like that. It's very delicate flavors, and you get a nice punch from the fennel pollen, but it is not like a big hit of licorice. So it makes it really nice, and it's mild. It's not too salty. It's not gamey at all. Very mild goat cheese, but you can still taste, like very clean goat's milk. So it doesn't taste like, it tastes like goat's cheese, like it should, but it also has that really nice undertone of lavender and fennel pollen.
So why did it get its name Purple Haze?
Well, we like to have fun at the creamery, and we actually have a lot of naming contests. And again, we're in Humboldt County in California, which is not necessarily known for cheese, but the cash crop of Humboldt County is more illicit than cheese, let's say. and
That's where my
is,
wife and I met.
Is it?
Yes.
That's great. So there is an association there to the 60s of Purple Haze, the Jimi Hendrix song, because Mary is a professional, serious hippie. And so that's the official tie-in. And I'm just not going to expand on the rest of that.
The only time in my life where I ever made a presentation where anybody took a weed break halfway through my presentation was in Humboldt County. So,
Guys, let's go to beer.
All right. So we're starting off with our pale ale. Same recipe. Ken had 40 plus years ago. It's still all about kind of drinkability. It's at the time when it came out, it was considered to be very hoppy and very bitter. Nowadays, with some of the IPAs that are out, it pales in comparison, no pun intended. But it comes in at 5.6 alcohol. It is bottle conditioned, or in this case, we're using cans. It's can conditioned, so a lot like how champagne is done. There's a secondary fermentation within the can or in the bottle that creates the last little bit of carbonation and some fruitiness that comes during that fermentation.
yeah, and this beer is pioneered the Cascade hop, which is a dual purpose hop, which provides a significant level of bitterness, 36 IBU. But of course, that classic aroma, the grapefruit like aroma. It's funny, I was just talking to Terence recently. I'm reminding him of the very first time I ever came up to the brewery here in Chico, and I said to Ken Grossman, your beers are about as hoppy as I can take them. Because I came out of England, and there were no beers when I left England. There were no beers either as bitter or as hoppy as the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. And yet now, over the 20 odd years that I've been in California, I'm looking for more and more hops because they really do grow on you. So this really is this is the flagship Pale Ale. This is the ultimate Pale Ale to go to in this country.
Well, I also understand that you use whole hops, not pellets.
Yes, whole cone. We have changed some of our recent beers that we've come out with. Our hazy little thing that incorporates what's called the lupulin or lupulin powder, more of a concentrated version, kind of the step right before it actually becomes pellets. But our traditional beers, the Torpedo, the Pale Ale, it is 100% whole cone hops, or whole leaf is the growers like to refer to them.
Yeah, the lupulin is the glands from the hops that contain all the oils and contain all the resins, contain the bitterness potential. So really, that's just a highly concentrated form of the active component from the whole leaf or the whole cone hop. Ken is firmly of the opinion that if you do anything to a hop, if you pelletize it or if you extract it, you take away something. If he had his druthers, I'm sure he would do what like the wine guys do with the new harvest crop even before it's dried and use the hops then. But of course, brewing's 365 days a year, so you don't have the crush. But I guess, his dream would be if you could do everything with the newly picked hops, you would do. And of course, Terence, you've got beers that are made with freshly picked hops. But you have to dry the hop to store it. But that's as far as Ken will go. He firmly believes in whole cone hops, even though it's not the most efficient way to use hops. You lose a lot of the bitterness in the processing, but that's a price he's prepared to pay.
Yeah, Charlie was talking about, you know, the lupulin gland and the hop cone. They are related to that other cash crop up there in Humboldt County. So they kind of tie together a little bit. This cheese is fabulous.
It is.
I love how the lavender and the fennel play with the actual beer, the caramel malts that are in there. You know, it's got probably about 7% of the malt bill in this is caramel malt, so it's adding a little bit of sweetness to it, and I think that just really kind of plays well with kind of the floral characteristics of the cheese. And
it's really what you taste. It's not about, you know, I mean, we run into a lot of times where people are, you know, I don't know enough about it. You don't have to know about it. You just have to know what you like. And I think that, you know, what you're saying about the maltiness in here, that brings out a little bit more of the sweet, buttery flavor, because this has a lot of tang to it. And I think that a lot of people thinking about a goat cheese in a beer, that the goat cheese would be really super sour, but that's not what happens. Michele?
Yeah, I definitely get that. When originally I started thinking about an IPA or pale ale, I'm sorry, with Purple Haze, I thought, I wonder if this is going to be kind of the clash of the titans, and if it's going to be too much going on, right? But and that it would not necessarily serve the cheese well, because there's almost always, when you're pairing things, like there's either the cheese is too strong for the beverage, or the beverage is too strong for the cheese. But you know, if you can get that magical match, which I think that this does here, where they both are sort of balanced in flavor, and then you get that sort of combustion engine of the sum of the parts being about more than equal to or extra than the sum of the parts. You guys know what I'm saying.
I know.
I have not drank all the beer yet.
right.
I haven't even gotten to halfway through the first one.
My wife and I tried these beers and cheeses at the weekend, and we picked this out. This pair was an absolute clear, distinct yes. I mean, a perfect pairing. And I was interested when I saw the notes that the rest of you had made, that everybody was of the same conclusion.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like this cheese is in bed with this beer. I mean, it really is a perfect pairing.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think anytime that you get herbs in that that you can merge them in with some hops, there's some symmetry, I guess, in there. But I think the biggest challenge with goat cheese is because that tanginess, that lactic acid that comes out, and it can be formidable. But I think that with the hops, you know, it does take them down a little bit. Somebody that would say, well, you know, I really don't like a lot of hops. Well, when you put these together, the hops do settle. You know, you don't notice that they're right up in the middle anymore. And I think there's a pretty even balance. I mean, I get a little fennel, I get a little lavender, I get butter, I get a little bit of tang, I get the maltiness, and I get a little bit of the hop. So I think they're really well staggered. I think that's what I think that we like about it, is
Right.
that there's such a nice balance of everything.
Sure.
Yeah. And I'm not sure, man, you know, I'm not sure on paper it looks like it would make any sense. You've got this cheese that might taste like potpourri, but it doesn't. And then you get this really lovely, you get you know, a nice hoppy beer. Well, it's not super hoppy by California standards now, but hoppy for somebody that doesn't like hops, which is not me, but you know, for somebody that is afraid of hops, or that's not their thing, you might think, wow, this is really not going to work. On paper, it doesn't necessarily work, but in practice, I assure you, it really does.
Yes.
It certainly does.
That's the best part, though, right? The practice.
Somebody's got to
It
do it.
really is. Yep. Yep.
Well, you know, it's a lot of times it's easy to tell people that you like something and why, but I think it's even harder when somebody says they don't like something and then trying to tell you, why don't you like it? Well, I just don't like it. Well, what is it that you don't like about it? And so you know, when you get into these pairings, it's just, it's so nice because things just kind of fall right into place. And you know, the beer and the cheese just are, you know, wonderful together. Great.
It's hard to imagine, but you know, there are some beers, none of the ones that are in front of us today, but there are some beers I don't like. And yet I know full well that if I'm sipping on them and I'm accompanying some type of food, including a cheese with those beers, it really does make me those beers more appealing to me. For example, I don't like really the beers that are made with smoked malts, you know, they taste with a strong sort of smoky bacon type flavor. And yet there are some dishes, including certain cheeses, that really, they make that beer acceptable to me. Whereas I don't like it when I'm drinking it on its own, you know, so.
Yeah, smoked porters and a bandage wrapped cheddar is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess I have a chore to do at the end of the day, I guess, huh?
All right.
One of the things I like about this, just to add one more note, is the finish that you get at the end of this, right? You get a really lovely, you're still able to taste the cheese. The effervescence of the beer doesn't take it entirely away. So at the really lovely long finish of both the beer and the cheese, which is also unusual and really, really nice in this case. That's what I get anyway.
Yeah.
I'm not a beer aficionado like you guys. I just like beer.
Right.
I don't know very much about it. So you have to, you know, treat me like the person that doesn't know much about beer. And it'll be,
Well, as long as you like it, that's all that really matters.
That's the main criteria.
Yep.
All right. Anything else we want to say about this before we move on to the next pairing?
No, I think we're good.
I think we're good.
All right. So
Right.
Michele, tell us about Little Giant.
okay, Little Giant is a new cheese for us. This is the guy, brand new, couple years in the making. Our flagship cheese that we'll get to later is, of course, Humboldt Fog. And this cheese is built to be different than Humboldt Fog. And it took us a long time to figure out how to do that. Our cheeses tend to be our soft ripened cheeses tend to be, you know, super citrusy and a little bit bold. And what we wanted to go for with Little Giant was something that was just a little bit more tame, I guess. It has a less aggressive rind so that it will, frankly, so that it will stay alive in transportation, even in a small format like this. But it is just the cutest little cheese. And, you know, single serve for somebody like me, but it's a great little cheese that ripens from the outside in, soft ripened, as we are experts of that at Cypress Grove. So you get a really lovely cream line, depending on the age of your cheese, because it ripens from the outside in. And this cheese is much more kind of yeasty and buttery, if I can say buttery, rather than buttermilk that you're going to get with like a truffle chummer or a Humboldt Fog. And it's just a really nice, lovely, well-balanced cheese, a little bit milder than our traditional Humboldt Fog.
There's a lot of people that may not be comfortable understanding or eating the rind. So Michele, will you tell them a little bit about the rind?
Oh, so the rind is similar to a brie in that it is a white, soft, bloomy rind. It's the Penicillium candidum and a little bit of geotrichum in there. The geotrichum makes it more yeasty. There's a little bit of geotrichum in Humboldt Fog, but a little bit more in this Little Giant. And you know, I'm not a rind snob. You don't have to eat the rind, but in a cheese this size and this, you know, this size, that's a lot of rind to leave behind. That's the, you know, the best part for me. But if you don't like rind, you don't have to eat it. But I would say that, you know, you get a very different texture when you add the rind in. And also in this case, it's a nice thin rind and you're not going to get a super bitter flavor that sometimes rinds can be more bitter. And you also normally get a little bit stronger flavor closer to the rind. And, but this rind in particular has got a really nice toothsomeness to it without being, without being too spongy. I know that's something that people don't like in a rind, I think. But I think if you are not a rind eater, and this is one that you could try, and it would be a nice entry point to try and see if you like rinds.
I think spongy is a good, how's that? Really nice. I like the rind myself.
It reminds me when I was a kid, my mother used to say you should eat the crusts on the bread. That's the best bit. That's the tastiest bit. And
That's right.
it's a lovely cheese.
Yeah, and in this case, I don't know if you guys are tasting that, but it is just so nice and yeasty, just like the crust of the bread. It's just really, just a really lovely kind of toasty taste to it.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. So Terrence, tell us about the Torpedo, and how do you come up with Torpedo?
The name Torpedo was actually, it's based off of a piece of equipment that we designed in-house. So some beers you can, in IPAs, generally you dry hop them. So you're actually adding hops towards the end of the fermentation process. Hops are added mainly to the boil as you're boiling the wort to create bitterness and extract the oils to get flavor and mouthfeel into a beer. But you can also add them, like I said, towards the end of fermentation or at the as it's chilling down as well. And what you're going to do is just enrich the hop character of that beer. And so Torpedo was a piece of equipment that we designed. In the first initial designs looked much like a torpedo, which is where the name kind of came from. It's an external unit. It's about a 300-gallon tank that we stuff with hops. We won't run the beer through that bed of hops for anywhere between 24 to 48 hours to enrich the hop character in the final beer. And that's what this beer is about. We call it an extra IPA because it's kind of it's kind of stuck a little bit between a traditional IPA and a double IPA because the alcohol level is 7.2. It's what I would refer to as a West Coast, classic West Coast IPA, which usually has an aggressive bitterness to it. This also has caramel malt in it, so it's got some sweetness, some maltiness to it, but it's generally all about the hops. And we use Citra and Crystal hops that impart a nice, again, kind of those grapefruit notes, fruity notes, as well as I get a lot of like cedar wood notes out of this beer.
Hop varieties, there are so many hop varieties, and just the same way that a winemaker talks about varietals and grape varietals, a brewer can do the same with hops, particularly if they're dry hopping, adding the aroma downstream. And you can get hops that are more spicy and some that are more citrus, and Citra tells you the name there, and then you get those that are more pine-like, or those that are other types of fruity character and so on. So by selecting different hops, you can get different intensities and different types of aroma taking place. Back where the original IPAs were, the storyline goes that they were designed really to allow beer to be shipped from England to India and survive along sea passes, therefore very bitter and very alcoholic. But I don't think in those days they would have been quite so hoppy on the nose. I mean, this very much is a North American development, making the beer so hoppy on the nose. If you go back to my native England and try many of the beers there, you won't find quite that intensity of hop character. I used to teach people about, how these cask conditioned ales in England, it will be a handful of hops, a handful of hops. Here we're talking about a torpedo vessel packed with hops, and the beer over many hours is pumped through to really bring out that intense hop character. But to me, with this cheese, that the sweetness of this cheese and the bitterness of this this beer. I mean, it really comes together beautifully.
Yeah, it really, you know, like one of the things, like, and I know there's probably some people that are listening in that kind of bitterness in beer is kind of keeps you away. With this cheese, it really cuts through the bitterness and kind of the sharpness of, because I feel like, and I'm not saying anything, like Torpedo is definitely a big and bold IPA, and pairing it with this cheese, it kind of softens it a little bit.
It really
Makes
is.
it-
It really is nice.
Yeah.
And very Moorish.
So I get this really lovely at the when I put the two together, I get this lovely kind of vanilla note. Do you guys, can anybody else detect that? Is that a thing? Did I make that up?
No, I
No.
don't think so. I think you're right.
No, it's really, I mean, that's why I love doing these things, you know, and even like beer dinners, and you know, you're discovering things about your beer, and then you're probably discovering things about your cheese too through these pairings, and it's really really fun, very educational. It's awesome.
Again, this is one of the pairings that that it doesn't necessarily look like it's going to work on paper, but everybody on this call came up with the same pair. Like, this is what's going to work. This is great.
Yeah,
Well,
this is really good.
When you're pairing, typically when you have a bloomy rind now that, you know, you definitely have the flavors of the rind, which are going to influence the flavors of the beer. And then you have the paste. So taking a bite of the paste and then taking a bite and then taking a sip of the beer and then doing it with the rind on there. The beautiful thing about this, that rind has that yeastiness to it, is that there's almost no difference. In other words, it's not like there's a big difference if you eat the rind or you don't eat the rind. It's not going to be very noticeable. But what I get out of it is that the hoppiness kind of, I think the Citra hop, I think that piney area just kind of drops down just a little bit and the malt comes up. So I really taste a nice maltiness with this that I think really fills in. So you have a little bit of tang, but that tang is kind of absorbed into it and you get that malt. Then you get the butter, you get a little bit of the yeasty sweetness, which I think is where the vanilla, that yeasty sweetness is kind of like a little vanilla flavor coming across. And then the hops pop up in the back. You know, you really get them. I mean, it's not like you don't want them, but it's nice that they come back and you get a little bit of a nice balance at the end. Yeah,
Nice little check mark, right? Like,
exactly. You get it all bounce in. This is so nice.
Really good.
Very good.
Really good.
Yeah, that cheese is not very widely available, so I'm glad that you guys got to taste it. We just released it, and it is it's as I said, not very widely available yet. So glad that we had it for you, and that you guys enjoyed it, and that now we know what to pair it with.
And it's in a nice, cute little
Oh, that box.
package. It's beautiful.
That box is adorable.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, we have a bonus because we also agreed that this beer went really well with lamb chopper. So Michele, tell us about lamb chopper and we'll do a quick little pairing with it.
Okay, so lamb chopper is a Gouda style sheep's milk cheese. It's the only cheese from Cypress Grove that is not goat's milk, and we just thought it would be a really nice pair with our Midnight Moon, which is a goat Gouda. We might as well have a sheep Gouda as well. And it is again, it's a super mild cheese, sheep's milk, so you get a nice. It's not lanolin-y like Manchego is. It's just a really lovely, mild, meltable sheep's milk Gouda that is just one of my favorites. It's a great cheese to cook with. And I don't know if the story behind the cheese is that Mary, we don't make this cheese in Arcata, because if we tried to make Gouda in Arcata, where we have all these beautiful soft soft bloomy rinds, we would kill one or the other cheeses. We're not sure which one would die, but we don't want to kill either one of them. So Mary partnered with somebody that she met at the fancy food show years and years and decades ago, who said, you have to taste my mom's Goudas. And she went over to the booth and tasted the mom's Goudas and said, okay, let's work together to come up with some recipes. So we still have them made for us in Holland and then shipped over. And I love this cheese because it is so versatile and so universal appeal, I think, right? Which makes it perfect for pairing.
Has a higher level of butterfat. And so we get this amazing sweet cream that's part of this with a little bit of nuttiness. So you get a kind of a sweet cream nut, almost like a caramelization. That's just fabulous. Terrence, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, so when we had all these samples, and I actually did this same pairing with a bunch of friends on Friday night, and I just fell in love with that cheese and kind of hoarded it myself and kind of just pulled it over to the corner. And I really, so Michele, I was going to ask that, because I love like aged Goudas, and so a little bit of like, how long is this aged, and what happens to that? Because I love the outer layer of this cheese, and like that kind of, you get that crystalline, the mouth feel, the texture, and all that. Like, what's going on there?
So in this particular cheese, it's not really aged very long. It's only about three to 6 months. We find that we have aged it longer and found that we don't like it as well so far. Not saying we're not experimenting, trying to figure out how to make a longer aged lamb chopper. But the beauty of it is that you don't have to age this super long to get a lot of flavor out of it. In my piece, I don't get those tyrosine crystals, which is the crunchy bits that are the aged amino acids from milk. I definitely get that in the Midnight Moon more often, but that's what it is. If you're getting sort of crunchy bits, it's not like salt crystals. Some people think that it's like salt crystals, but I just call it, cheese crack, frankly.
I was like that.
Yeah, I'm all about
It's
that.
in keeping with the theme of Humboldt.
Yep, right.
Yeah, it's the opposites attract thing. Sorry.
Yeah, it is. For some of these, of course, some of the pairings, it's more reinforcing, the two reinforcing one another. But in this one, it's the pairings that really make a wonderful matching.
It's good. I like the fact two cheeses with this one. I like that.
Well, we
Why not?
definitely get a different pairing experience where before with the Little Giant, it kind of settled the hops down. Where here we bring them up, but I think that the nuttiness and the hoppiness, I think, kind of run a really nice parallel. The butter is the butter and malt kind of come together, so you have a butter malt, and then you have the hops and the nuttiness that kind of like sits on top of that, and it's a nice, I guess, a balancing act to get in there, because the beer doesn't overpower, the cheese doesn't overpower, but they definitely have distinct flavor characteristics that are just lovely, lovely.
Very good.
We're all going to just take a moment to enjoy that.
I know, right?
It's really good.
Yeah, exactly. So we are moving to the Humboldt Fog. So Michele, tell us about your iconic cheese.
Yeah, we call it the original American original, because this is one of the very first cheeses in America that was made in America that is not based on a European style cheese, right? This is absolutely Mary's creation. Here's what it looks like cut. And this is a soft ripened, so you've got that soft white bloomy rind goat cheese again that has been ash ripened. So we cover it with ash, we make it and then we cover it with ash, and there's an ash line down the center, which is a vegetable ash That acts not as a flavor agent at all, but as it changes the pH of the milk so that you know, when you have a traditional fresh goat cheese, you get kind of that, it's very tangy, right? Very acidic. That ash actually tones that down a hair, changes the pH of the surface of the cheese, makes that rind grow really nicely. And also, again, takes it, this is a nice citrusy cheese for sure. And again, depends on how old, this one just came to me straight from the creamery, so it's not very old. So I don't have very much ripening. And you know, my rind is gonna be super, super white and snowy, but it's really not unusual, especially if you live west east of the Rockies, that this cheese will come to you with much more age on it than I've got in my hand right now. And it's still equally delicious. I kind of prefer my cheese to be running out the door in front of me. So it's okay with me if it has a really thick cream line and then just a little bit of paste in the center. But it is, again, as it matures, you know, cheese is a living, breathing thing. So as it matures, you get different flavor profiles. So my profile today, and I don't know what you guys are looking at, but mine is pretty young. So I'm going to have a lot more citrusy notes, and it's going to be, you know, more to the side of a regular fresh goat cheese flavor profile, more tangy, more acidic, more citrus, and less complex, which is what you get when you have the rind and a lot more cream line as this cheese ages.
This is a beautiful cheese. And I think like right away when we were kind of discussing this whole thing, I remember Charlie saying, we need something that's sour to go with this, because I think this is one of his favorite cheeses as well. So Wild Little Thing is a fruited beer. We call it slightly sour because it's not a traditional, what would be like a lambic or something like that's overwhelmingly sour. This does a little bit of lactic acid fermentation with some of the wort, and then we make this beer. It's 5.5%. It's really, in a lot of ways, a great refresher beer, in my opinion. It uses guava, strawberry, and hibiscus. Hibiscus gives us this kind of red color to it. But a lot of the strawberry comes through, and the guava as well. Mainly for me, a lot of strawberry aroma and a lot of strawberry flavor. That little bit of kind of sourness, I think, just goes fabulously with this cheese. Not a lot of bitterness to this beer.
I think this has got to be the least bitter beer that is produced by Sierra Nevada. I would think it's less than 10 IBU, and there's a history of sour beers from Belgium, for example, including a proportion of fruit. You know, people have heard of the famous sort of the cassis with the black currants and the pêche and pombe and so on. So, you know, the fruit, the presence of fruit is no stranger to the sour beers. You still got the sourness coming through. And I know from, I used to come up every year to Arcata and do a fundraiser with a local school and doing beer and cheese pairings, which always I thoroughly look forward to. And I always would have a Humboldt fog, and always a famous sour beer from one of Ken Grossman's good friends from Russian River. And he insisted, you know, Kenny, the brewer there insisted that his beer had to be paired with Humboldt fog, and quite rightly so. This again is the tartness of the two really balance one another beautifully well, in my opinion.
Well, this beer is delightful. I'm actually based in Austin, Texas, not in Arcata, and this is going to be like what I drink all summer long. This is just so delightful. I get the strawberries first, absolutely, but a bit of guava as well. And I just think, you know, it's just perfect. It's perfect for summertime drinking.
A nice summer afternoon, sipping on this, nibbling on some of this fine cheese.
It'll cut through the humidity.
Watch the world go by. Just watch the world go by.
Absolutely. And I like it for the same reasons you guys do as well. You know, it's just a really nice, when I think about summer and the heat, like 9 times out of 10, I just want to, that's all I want for dinner, right? Is give me a really nice beverage, a nice beer like this, and a piece of cheese and a couple of crackers, and I'm happy. I didn't have to cook. I didn't have to clean anything up. And it's just a really nice way to spend an afternoon.
Yeah, perfectly well balanced diet there, you go, right there.
I got all the food groups except for maybe a piece of chocolate at the end, right?
Yeah.
But the strawberries, I often pair Humboldt Fog with strawberries on its own, you know, as a fruit to go with the cheese. And so this, for me, just knocks it out of the park.
I think that that's an important part about the way that this beer works with this cheese, is that the fruitiness that's in here, as we said about it being a little sour, you don't want it to be syrupy, and that would be just god awful. So having the little bit of a sour hint to it with that strawberry and the guava in there is really nice. It's the fruitiness really stands out. The carbonation is just, it's in the background, so you're not getting a overly carbonated beer here. And then when you put in the Humboldt Fog, that rind, is one of my favorite parts about it. Is just, it has a nice richness to it. There's a little bit of a mushroom flavor, but it's kind of a little bit of a woodsiness. And it really picks up and enhances some buttery flavors that's in there, but they all come together with the fruit. And the beauty part about this is that you really don't lose one or the other, you know, and the others two, we kind of dropped something down in here. They really stayed out in their nice balance, because the fruitiness of the beer isn't overpowering, and the cheese isn't overpowering. So you get a nice balance. It's really a nice, and like Michele said, this is a great beer for the summertime, and just enjoying with a cheese when you want to do something a little light, not so formally heavy.
Right.
Yeah, I could also see myself, you know, like at the end of a barbecue, after some burgers on the grill or something, having this as the dessert course. Perfect.
You know, in my experience doing beer dinners, it's usually the dessert course works the best. And there's 2 reasons for that. One is, you know, there's been several courses beforehand, but really, you know, there's some tremendous triumphs to be had with whether it's cheese and different beers or some other desserts and so on. So you're right. I mean, this would be a great conclusion to a meal.
Yeah, I would actually encourage people too, is like, you know, Wild Little Thing has a little bit of sourness to it. We're trying to kind of pick a beer that's easy for people to get. We do make some stronger sour beers, and that's one thing I want to do, is grab one of ours and really try it with this, probably tonight.
And we also paired it up with the lamb chopper.
Again.
Yeah, lamb chopper again, showing its versatility. But I think that's really nice. I like that very much. It's a different kind of flavor because the creaminess of the cheese is so much, well, the cheese is so much more, coats your mouth so much more, and it's much creamier. So I really like the textural difference that you get between that and Humboldt Fog. But I will admit that I like the flavor on the Humboldt Fog pairing better.
Very distinctly different. You really pick up the saltiness, which you don't get without the beer. You really don't notice that there's a saltiness here, but there's a beautiful saltiness in here that comes out. But the strawberry goes right to the top. I mean, that's amazing.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because it was like, as you were saying that, I'm like, wow, the saltiness in the cheese is like just really shining through.
It's a remarkable testimony to how different pairings can really shift the perception of the beer in this case.
Mhm.
Well, I think that encourages you to drink more beer because the saltiness kind of comes in like like the peanuts, and you need another beer, and it's kind of like it's quenching, and then you take a bite here, then you gotta go back. So it's a really nice balance of I love the cheese, but I need the beer now. It's one of those things where okay, it's time for the beer because it just you need it to help with that, and so it's kind of like they're paired as assistants
Yeah,
to each other.
I agree. It's really good. I was telling Charlie when you sent the first kind of sampler so that we could try them, I made the mistake of opening them in the back with in our shipping department. But it ended up being this field day. Everybody came down and we were heating up tortillas and we were pairing it with everything, just so you know, and it went with everything. So
I love that.
yeah,
Well, I have that very generous selection of beer that you sent me. And so, that was my weekend plan. It made for a great weekend.
Exactly.
awesome.
All right, so let's get to our final cheese, and that is the Midnight Moon.
Okay, so I talked a little bit about this before. This is Midnight Moon. It is our goat's milk Gouda, and it is, again, made for us in Holland with a recipe that Mary helped develop. And it is, this one's aged six months or more. So depending on the age of it, when you get it, it's 6 months to a year, I would say. And you get more of those crunchy crystals in it the older that it is. And this cheese is just like butterscotch heaven, right? You get a really nice nuttiness, a really nice caramel, brown sugar caramel kind of flavor to it. And for people that don't like goat cheese, this is often their gateway goat cheese, right? Because it doesn't taste anything like a fresh goat cheese. It has no hint of barnyard to it. It has no hint of, and barnyard, isn't a bad term necessarily, but this does not taste anything like there's a goat in the same room with you. It tastes really lovely, caramely, nutty, and rich, and it's my favorite. But don't tell anybody.
Okay.
I love this cheese.
It melts in your mouth cream with that caramel, that sweetness, but the crunchiness in here is exceptional. When you think about how, a lot of Goudas will be, rock hard, and they'll be crunchy, rock hard crunchy, and that this is super soft and crunchy. This is fabulous.
This is really, this is, I'm just going to say, this is a really good cheese. Let me just keep saying that. No, it's exceptional. And it's the cheese that a lot of people find, like the first goat cheese I tried that I was like, oh my gosh, goat cheese was definitely Midnight Moon.
Okay, so I was wrong earlier whenever I was speaking about the outer layer. It is this cheese. So we paired this with our barrel-aged Narwhal, which is, I like to say, our kind of our heavy hitter. It's very much a beer that is like near and dear to all of our hearts. We actually literally built a barrel room about 2 miles from our brewery just so we can house bourbon barrels to age this beer in. It clocks in at 11.9%. So the base beer is an imperial stout that goes into the bourbon barrels, spends roughly about 12 months in those bourbon barrels, gains a good amount of alcohol from those. Also a lot of flavor. You're going to get a lot of that kind of bourbon notes, classic oak, vanilla, boozy characters a little bit, I would say. But the base beer is kind of where all the magic happens. That's a lot of roasted malts that impart just all types of
Well, roasted mocha, chocolate, coffee, these sorts of really heavy, darker flavors, roasted flavors and stuff.
Tobacco, tobacco.
And this is not as bitter as the Torpedo. This has got a slightly lower IBU value than the Torpedo, but it's got this big, bold character. I mean, Narwhal itself, the regular Narwhal, if you could call it that, is a great beer, but when it's barrel aged, I remember doing a beer dinner some while ago, and I was pairing this with a chocolate dessert, and I was talking, and somebody said, just be quiet. Let's just enjoy this delight. And this cheese as well goes spectacularly with it. There's one thing, there's a really good illustrative point here. I mean, I've been working on the head on beer, the foam on beer for 42 years. And I keep telling people about the fact that you can kill the foam very quickly with lipid and fat. And I've killed all the foam on my beer because I've been drinking the beer and the cheese. So the one negative thing is that the lipids.
See, I got a fresh glass. You get a little bit of foam on that.
The lipid and the fats, because this beer, although the alcohol, the higher the alcohol, does tend to hold the foam down a bit. But it should have a better foam than this, and it's because I've been using this same glass and eating the cheese and that. But it's a price worth paying for this delight, really.
Yeah, this is beautiful.
All the flavors. This is the beer is magnificent. It is malty to the nines. It has the barrel aging. You can taste that beautiful richness that's in there, and there's underlining flavors that just keep going. It's so full of flavor. Some nice sweetness in here, and then adding in the cheese. The cheese actually, because there's a low level amount, there is a level of bitterness to that. So the cheese balances out that bitterness and adds just enough to kind of even it out to, it doesn't seem like it's a high volume or a high gravity beer. It really seems more sweeter and drinkable. I think that it would be they're very dangerous together, because when you taste this, you know that you're tasting a formidable beer. When you put this with it, it's not a formidable beer. It's really easy to drink, and you finish off the pint, or 22 ouncer, and you're in a little trouble. But this is nice. This is I would say that if you're looking to impress your friends with a cheese and beer dessert, a way to end their evening is this is amazing, because you don't need. Everybody has to have a glass. You could pour up a little bit, cut off a chunk of cheese, and you could have a really great experience. This is one of the best dessert pairings I've had in a very, very long time.
Yeah, I was talking about the dessert earlier on, pairing this with a chocolate cake, but really I think, if anything, this pairing with this cheese works better even than that did. So I'm with you totally. This is a great way to round off a meal.
But I have to agree with you, Michael, that this is a dangerous combination. Like, I'm glad we're near the end of the day here, so I can just sit in the corner with the rest of this cheese and this beautiful barrel-aged Narwhal. It's going to make my night.
Excellent.
Yeah, I had thoughts of doing a little bit extra work now, but I'm going to just share my cheese board and not share as much of the beer, but enjoy the beer tonight.
Excellent.
This beer really is one of my personal favorites.
I can see that why it would be. This is a magnificent beer. And how long has this been out? I mean, how long have you been brewing this for a long time?
We've made it. We bottled it a few times, but it came out in this package form. It comes out in 4 packs at the beginning of 2020. So okay. So it is pretty hard to find. We package it at 200 barrels. A barrel of beer is 31 gallons. So roughly 6,200 gallons every batch. We release it about 4 times a year. It's usually sold out before it's even packaged. But you can find it if you go to our website, sierranevada.com, use our beer finder. You can generally find it somewhere, usually in kind of exclusive beer centric liquor stores, or like Total Wines and Bevmos and things like that. We'll have it, but it's really, you got to be on it a little bit, because it as soon as it gets on the shelf, it's gone. So, but it's a fabulous beer. It's something we're very proud of, and we really enjoy.
Yeah, I agree. It's a fabulous beer. It's a great way to end the pairings.
I'll be hoarding this. That one upstairs says he's not getting any of this.
All right. Anything else we'd like to say before we wrap it up here and start to our own little devious ways?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks
Well,
very
thank
much.
you guys so much for being a part of this. I really enjoyed it. I so much enjoyed your beers, and I can't wait to go out and find some of the stuff that I haven't had as much familiarity with before, because like this is my jam. I'm gonna
right.
get some.
Okay.
You know, the thing I think that comes out to me from today is that, what we've got here, we talked about the cheeses and the beers pairing together and marrying, but you got 2 great companies here. You've got 2 companies, a cheese company and a beer company, that believe in doing things right. And so it really is it's great to be part of an interaction in this way.
Absolutely. Yep.
It's a pleasure meeting you guys. And Michele, it's always a pleasure seeing you and working with you here. I had a great time. I love the cheeses, adore the beers, and will enjoy the rest of my evening here with these and that. So I wanted to thank you again. And, hopefully we'll see each other. We'll all see each other in the near future.
Thank you.
All right, guys, take care. And again, thank you so much. We'll see you soon. All right.
Thank you. Bye.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.